Welcome to the Grace Street Church of Christ podcast. Here you will find a collection of our weekly sermons, our preacher's daily radio program, and other occasional resources. Our hope is this platform helps you grow in your relationship with Jesus Christ and seek a relationship with His church.
Yeah, we read yesterday morning from Hebrews chapter 8, talking about the difference between the Old Covenant and the New Covenant. And I made mention of the fact that I think that's one very primary point of confusion among American Christians today. That there are a lot of people who open their Bibles and who don't understand the difference between reading the history of a previous covenant in contrast to reading the details and the events and the circumstances and the means of entering into a right relationship with God on the conditions of the New Covenant. What we noted last week, or yesterday rather, was that the Hebrew writer says that Jesus' ministry is as superior to the Levitical priest's ministry as the covenant that he ratified is to the previous covenant. And he says about that covenant that if there had been nothing wrong with that first covenant, the Mosaic covenant, the covenant of law, then no place would have been sought for another. But God found fault with the people and said, "The days are coming, declares the Lord, when I'll make a new covenant." You know, I made mention of the fact yesterday that by saying the new covenant is superior to the old is not to say that the old covenant was flawed of itself. Because the truth is, the old covenant that was based on law, if you go back through the Old Testament prophets and even to the history of the book of Exodus, for example, where that law is introduced at Mount Sinai, and Moses stands and makes proclamation before the people, that in all those events and circumstances connected to that previous covenant, that the promises of God to prosper the people was based on their willingness and their ability to fully obey all the commands of that covenant. Now the issue is asking the question, or really answering the question, of whether the people were able to fully obey all the commands and requirements of that covenant. And what we discover from the New Testament is, because we're sinful creatures, it isn't possible for us to live sinless lives. In other words, we couldn't fully perform. We couldn't meet all the conditions of a covenant based on keeping the rules or obeying the law. The law of Moses and all the law that God revealed even prior to the law of Moses was in fact a revelation of the character of God. We aren't to be liars because God isn't a liar. And fellowship with a honest God demands that we be honest. And what we discovered is, again, that no one can be declared righteous, the Roman writer says, on the basis of law. It only convicts us of sin.
You've been listening to the Grace Street Church of Christ podcast. Our weekly worship services are available online on YouTube, and you can keep up to date on other events and news on our Facebook page or website. If you live in the Houston County area and are looking for a church family, please join us on Sundays at 10:45 a.m. for worship and Bible classes at 9:30 a.m. as well as 6 o'clock p.m. on Wednesday nights. Call us at 936-544-3325 or email us at office@gracestreetcoc.us with any needs, questions, or prayer requests. We hope this teaching has been a blessing to you as we strive to honor God together.